Immigration is defined as the migration of people from their host country to the selected country. The European migration crisis was a mass exodus of people from North Africa and the Middle East that occurred during 2015 due to political instability and terrorist groups in the Middle East. According to Pew Research Center, a record 1.3 million refugees entered the European Union in 2015. The crisis placed a massive strain and burden on politics and the economies of each country. Our presentation has two objectives: to gain a better understanding about how immigrants impact the politics of each country and about the impact immigrants exert on the economies of each country. For the individual assignment, the group adopted a common theme of research, studying the effects of the European immigrant crisis on social, political and economic factors in certain countries. The countries the four of us studied respectively were Germany, France, Sweden and England. These countries were some of the most generous considering refugee intake numbers. All of the countries had different results with their responses to these intakes, and here is a brief description of the effects on each economy. Germany has been the most popular destination in the European refugee crisis, partly due to its asylum laws of Article 16A of German Basic Law and the economic prospects of its labour market. In 2015, the country recorded its highest net immigration of foreign nationals, mounting up to 1.1 million. Migrants establishing their own businesses and respectively do trading with countries of origin can result in the expansion of trade as a consequence of immigration. Germany witnessed a rise of right-wing nationalism and tensions arose from European Union members as Angela Merkel toughened her stance on immigration.
The migrational crisis of 2015 had significant effects on the economic and political environment in France. The subsequent rise of populism in the form of Marine Le Pen's National Front and the eventual election of Emmanuel Macron, a pro-migrant figure, signalled that France would be open to the economic opportunity that this influx of migrants represented. Low birth rates in France and across Europe have caused concern considering the economic future for the nation and continent. However, the recent Yellow Vest movement has shown that Macron has not significantly addressed the concerns of the French citizens.
During the crisis, Sweden ranked fourth in migrant intake per capita amongst all countries in Europe, outdone only by countries of significantly smaller sizes. The crisis had a huge impact on the social and political environment in Sweden, however it failed to impact the economy. In the most recent election, the Sweden Democrats, a party that is far more conservative on immigration, got the votes. The intake meant that policy was changed to restrict immigration intake and reduce the likelihood of migrants gaining citizenship. Furthermore, the anti-immigrant sentiment also filtered into the political environment. Economically, Sweden neglected the same conservative response, and the economy actually traded billions of US dollars more than it did in 2015.
Immigration has had a major impact on the political and economic landscape of the UK, predominantly due to the migration crisis of 2015. The rising concerns from UK citizens regarding immigration was utilised by political parties during the debates over Brexit. The UK's exit from the European Union was promoted by pro-leave political parties as a means of strengthening immigration laws and promising stronger, more secure borders. This was a huge influence on the eventual Brexit decision. Economically, the rampant increase in migration, while having a small effect, only served to aid the economy. In fact, UK citizens saved $24 billion in tax expenditure due to an increased flow of tax revenue from migrants.
After the European migration crisis, there has been a rising trend in nationalism and the election of far right-wing politicians as a backlash to negative sentiments towards immigration and the weakening of the national identities of each of the European countries. In 2017, the far right-wing Alternative for Germany, known for its stance on anti-Euro ideology, became the biggest opposition party in Germany, and Chancellor Merkel had her position threatened. In Spain, the far-right Vox party entered parliament with more than a 10% vote and projects itself as defending the nationality of Spain and assures to deport illegal immigrants. In Austria, the Freedom Party is a far-right party. In contrast, Marine Le Pen failed to make the far-right mainstream in France, as Emmanuel Macron claimed victory over her. In Sweden, the Sweden Democrats with roots in neo-Nazi movements made significant gains in the 2018 election, winning 18% of the vote. In Britain, a referendum taken in 2016 to decide the future of Britain in the EU dubbed Brexit as a nationalist movement. Consequently, Britain chose to leave the EU. In Italy, a hung parliament was the result as Luigi Di Maio, anti-establishment party, and Matteo Salvini's conservative Lega Nord party shared the parliament with a centre-left party, highlighting a big political divide.
Overall, the effects of the migrant crisis were far-reaching in European society. The promise of economic opportunity for both migrants and EU citizens produced many responses. Immigrants are often perceived as a burden for the public budget as they allegedly pay less in tax and contributions on the one hand, but claim more benefits and disproportionately consume on the other. Most of the empirical studies, especially those for the US and the UK, suggest that immigrants make a positive net contribution to the welfare system in these economies. The EU economy did change during the crisis, in most cases for the better. The increased pool of labour and potential tax revenue streams were advantageous for businesses and governments across Europe. These statistics demonstrate macroeconomic environment changes that Europe went under. For example, the EU unemployment rate from 2015 to 2017 went down from about 9.4% to 8.2%. In the EU, post-2015, the GDP percent change took a considerable rise and then in the next 2 quarters dropped to be just above the rate it started at. Compared to 2017, the GDP grew every quarter except for a slight decline between the fourth quarter of 2016 and the first quarter of 2017. This highlights how the economy slowed down once consumers feared economic change during the crisis, however returned to normal functioning once the hysteria had calmed. In the EU in 2015, 39% of GDP was taken in as tax revenue, and in 2017 this shot up to 40.2%. In 2015, social expenditure in the EU was 28.3%, and in 2017 it surprisingly decreased to approximately 19% of GDP.
Overall, the economic and political effects have been felt across the continent. Politics has undoubtedly been reactionary, as seen in the rise of populism across the EU. The crisis has shown that the European Union has the potential collapse due to the economic effects of migration, as well as the willingness of political leaders to actively seek to undermine the project. Breakaway groups such as the Visegrad Group and movements such as Brexit and the Yellow Vests have shown that the region is unstable. The extent to which this is due to migration is not yet known. In economic terms, with birth rates across the EU being alarmingly low, the migrants represent a significant opportunity for economies across Europe. However, the rise in social expenditure and decline in GDP is alarming. These effects may yet be a hangover from the European debt crisis. However, the trajectory of nations in Europe is cause for concern. Undoubtedly, the migration crisis of 2015 has had a significant effect on the economic and political environment in Europe.